So we're going to talk about expressions and equations. Before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about grouping symbols. So you can use parentheses to group something together. So you want to put like x plus y in parentheses, and then that groups that operation inside the parentheses. We also have square brackets to group things. So you might have something like x plus y minus z or something like that. So you can see the parentheses are inside the square brackets. We usually use the parentheses first, and then if we need another grouping, we'll go to the square brackets. If we need another grouping, we use, sometimes my students call them the swirly brackets, but you could have something like 5 plus square bracket 6 minus parenthesis 2 plus 3 parentheses square bracket swirly bracket. They're not really called swirly brackets. Sometimes they're called braces. A lot of times students though call them brackets. So anyway, that's a grouping. Those are examples of grouping symbols. If you have a need for more than that, it's probably not going to come up, but you'd probably just start over with parentheses and square brackets and so on. It just says, we want to group this operation in on its own, but it's separate. Not separate. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, those are examples of groupings. We can have something like, x plus 2 divided by 5 minus 3, something like that. That is it's a division bar, but there's a natural grouping. You can say, okay, there's a numerator and a denominator. There's stuff that you're going to do in the numerator before you do the actual division. So anyway, I just point that out. Expressions and equations. Expressions aren't statements. They're symbols and number and constants, variables, constants, grouping symbols, but they don't equal anything. They're not less than something. They're not statements. Equations are statements. They're specific statements. Equations have equal signs. If it doesn't have an equal sign, it's not an equation. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an expression, but for now, they're just talking about looking at expressions or equations. So they ask us on this example, I don't know why it says example 2. Oh, yes it is. Anyway, it wants to know if A is an expression or an equation. Well, it's got the equal sign, so it's an equation. Now, part B looks very, very similar to the problem in A, but it's not an equation. It doesn't have an equal sign. There are 2 subtraction signs in there, but no equal sign. So this would be an expression. In general, we simplify expressions, we solve equations. So that's a lot of what we're going to do in algebra. So there's a big difference between what we can do with an equation and what we can do with an expression.